Hey guys, this is Chad. I'm the creative director here at Bluleadz. Today we're going to be doing something cool. We're going to be talking about how to add a really neat modal pop-up window to a Hubspot website. I know some people out there may be asking the question, and really we get questions like this a lot. But I want to show you guys how to do this real quick. Shouldn't take long. From a scale of 1 to 5, I'd put this at like a 3 on difficulty scale. So let's get started. So there's a couple things you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know how to get to the template builder or the design manager in HubSpot. That's pretty easy. Basically, you want to log into your HubSpot portal. On the main black HubSpot bar, menu bar up top here, you're going to go to Content, and you're going to go to Design Manager. Okay, and you're gonna see a view that looks similar to what you see here. And it actually may look something more like this, where you just have a few recent files. You have, on the side here, you'll see templates, which are your drag and drop templates, your coded files, a primary CSS file, and then a custom module. Today, we're actually going to be creating a custom module. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to click here, custom modules, new custom module, and we're going to, again here, make sure you can, from this window here, you can select a couple different options, but click create, and we're just going to call it BZ's pop-up. Okay, let's be correct with this. Alright. And you're going to see something like this. Now, if it's the first time creating a pop-up any type of custom module, you're going to see a bunch of default fields on the left side, and you're going to see a bunch of code on the right side. Don't let that scare you. That's just the default. You can go and delete it all, and you can delete it by just clicking arrange fields, and all the fields that are above it will have a delete button next to them. So you can go through and click that and delete it, and by just selecting Command A or Control A inside the text editor here in this area here, and delete, you can delete all that code very easily. Okay, now so we have our module created. Okay, there's nothing in it yet, but it is there. Okay, we have our we have a file here called popup.css. This is the default of a CSS file. Okay, and that's created also here in the design manager, and you can actually on the blog post, you can come and find all the CSS that you're going to need. I'm just going to copy and paste it, but right here in the blog post, right here, magnific pop-up CSS, magnific pop-up JS. Now, that being said, let me go over. This is actually not our plugin. This is a plugin by a nice gentleman who freely lets people use this. It's up for free on GitHub, but he does have a web page that has all the documentation in it. It's as far as a pop-up window goes, it's not the most amazing. Doesn't do all the bells and whistles that some of them do, but this is actually a very tight plugin. It is when you need something that's down and dirty and that just works, period, this is a great solution. It works with jQuery. You do require jQuery, but every HubSpot website has jQuery included in it already. All right. So that being said, let's continue on. So I've copied and pasted. I've created a popup.css. Okay, and copied and pasted all my magnific pop-up CSS. This is all the default stuff. Okay, you don't have to really worry about it right now. If you want to modify background colors, that kind of thing, you would probably want to do it in here. Okay, so I'm going to publish the changes on that. All right, but I need to keep it open, and I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I need to create. I need to get our JavaScript plugin from Magnific Popup, okay? And I don't have that created yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on coded files here, and then it'll say new coded file. So I click new coded file and make sure that this button is selected. Now it doesn't say JS here, and I understand that's a little odd, but what you're going to want to do is just select page, okay? And we're going to create, okay? We're going to need a place to put it. I have created a logging tutorials folder, but to create a new folder you want to click on the page and create new folder, okay? But since I've already got one here, I'm going to select that. I am just going to name it popup.js, and we're going to save that, okay? And it's going to give me this view. Now, just for sake of time, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to copy all of our JavaScript that we need from the plugin, and I'm just going to paste it, okay? And that should be everything we need for our Magnific Popup JavaScript plugin. Okay, we're going to save that. Now that we have our CSS and our JavaScript, I'm going to come over here to our custom module that we created earlier that, again, we don't have any HTML for yet. And I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing I need to do is, one, I need to create the fields. And these fields are going to be the fields that you're going to fill in. They're going to have the content of the, two things, the content of the actual modal window that pops up, and they're going to have the button text, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to create a field. We're going to call it a rich text field, okay? And that is going to have a title of Modal Popup, okay? Content. Actually, that'd be better off putting in the actual label section. But all I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to say this Modal Popup works. Okay. All right, and you'll see here, there's a couple things you'll see here. One, it gives it basically a machine name. Okay, so this is your nice, beautiful label. This is the one everybody reads, but the ID for this module is modal_popup_content. Okay, and you'll see the little tag that we're going to use later right here. Okay, but we don't need to grab it now. I just want to show you all the elements. Okay, so we're going to create a new field, and there it is. Okay, now if we click Add New Field, we're going to create a text field, and this text field we're going to call Modal Button Text. Okay, and again we can put help text there, and then for the modal button text I'm just going to put modal button. Okay, this is just going to be my default text. This is what you're going to see on the front end when the button gets displayed. Okay, so I'm going to create a new field, and there she is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing we need an actual button. Okay, so page, we need the modal button here. Okay, we need the actual modal window. Okay, and then that's going to actually be hidden by default, but we still need it. Okay, we need our we just need a link to our style sheet, and that's going to be that's going to be in there. We're going to need our script here. Okay, might help if I spell it right. And then to initialize this whole thing, we're going to need our own JavaScript, not the plugin, but our own JavaScript. And here is where we're going to place our initialization script goes here. Okay, so those are the elements. We have our modal button, our modal window. We have a link to our style sheet. Any extra styles that we need will be here. We can delete that later if we don't need it. We have our JavaScript link to our plugin, and then we need our initialization script, which is really what we use to call the actual JavaScript file. Okay, so the first thing is our modal button. And if you're just writing HTML, your modal button might look like something like this. We got a little hash, and really what this is doing is this is calling the ID of the the modal window, okay? And we might have a class on it, and that class would probably look something like open pop-up link. And then in my company, when we style a button for a website, we always try to use the default Hubspot class, which is HS button. Okay, and that will, if you've already styled that class, it'll automatically get you the nice, pretty style that you have. Okay, and then the actual text. So our text goes here. Okay, the actual modal window. Okay, what we're going to do there. Okay, so we are going to need a div, and that div will need an ID. Okay, and the ID and now for just sample purposes is going to be modal, not without the hash, is going to be modal. And so you can kind of get here, if you're familiar with CSS, the hash in CSS means ID, okay? When you're actually writing the ID in a div, you use the full attribute name, which is ID. So that's how you reference it. So you're referencing in the link, the button itself, you're referencing the actual ID of the modal window, okay? And then the actual, and that class is going to be white popup, okay? And for magnific popup, it has a default hide class, so it would just be MFP hide. The white popup is just going to be something for us to identify it later on down the road, okay? Now, we need our style sheet link, okay? And the style sheet link is over here where we have our popup.css, okay? And how you get that is you just click actions and you get our public URL, okay? You grab that, just click copy. And if for whatever reason it doesn't copy, you can just highlight it, Command C, okay? Come back over here to our modal window, and we're just gonna paste that right into there. Right in between the double quotes, okay? Now, here's an issue that you may run into. I use double quotes initially, but because the public template uses double quotes, I'm gonna go ahead and put single quotes around that, so it doesn't interfere with the actual with any valid CSS, or HTML, sorry. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our script tag. Script is done the same way. We have our published JavaScript plugin file. We're just going to click actions, go to get public URL. We're going to either copy it or highlight copy it with Command C or Control C, depending on your Windows or Mac. We'll come over here to our script, and we will just replace this as well. We're going to need to make sure that we are not using double quotes on the outside of that, because of the fact that the inside is using double quotes as well. That's just not valid markup, all right? So now we technically have and actually, if we want to test it, really, we could come over here and we could say, this is the modal pop up and it works, okay? That's where the content would go, okay? So we've got a couple things here already. We've got our modal window button. We've got a sample modal window modal window box, which is the actual modal window. We've got our style sheet, any extra styles that we're going to need, and we've got our JS file plugged in here. And then the last thing we need here before we start getting into the Hubble code for our modules that we built earlier is to actually initialize the plugin. Now, we have our basic framework here. If we were to save this and go look at it on our web page, it would show up without a problem, okay? But we're missing a couple things. This isn't dynamic. In other words, we're not going to be able to change any of the content of this module without actually coming in and editing the module physically. We don't want that. We want some Joe Schmo who doesn't have any coding experience to be able to just go in, edit the content of the pop-up, edit the text of the pop-up button, the modal button, and be done, okay? So we're going to do a couple things, okay? So we're going to come in here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to modify our button, okay? We're going to copy the button. And I'm just going to come down here below here, and I'm going to paste that copy snippet, what we just copied, by clicking the copy snippet link. We're going to paste it down here below. And the reason why I'm pasting it below is so I can just grab the content that's inside of it. Okay. So if I need to grab that content, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. Okay. I just want to show you what it spits out. Okay. We're going to copy this, and we're going to replace the text goes here with that. Okay. That essentially, we just created an area where the button text shows up, and you can click the preview here, and you can see modal button text. Yay! All right. And if you remember, if we edit the button text, that's our text we have here. And if I change this, okay, if I save that and I click preview, you can see it changes it. So it is dynamic, it's there, okay? So now we need to change the content, okay? Or we need to change the content area, because we don't want people to have to come back here to change the content. We want them to be able to do it in the editor. So we're going to copy the same snippet, okay? Same thing for the modal pop-up content. And we're going to replace our little sample content, okay? And if we click preview, we actually shouldn't see it because it should be hidden, but it is there, okay? So there we have it. Okay, now, here's where things get a little tricky. Now, let's just say this works perfectly fine. In other words, we could use this all day long as we only put it once on a page. Why is that, Chad? Why do you say as long as we only put this once on a page? Now, the way CSS works is that you can only have one unique ID per page. Because we are using the ID modal on this page, we will not be able to use it again. Okay? If I was to click the modal link on this page and there was multiple modal windows, the BZ pop-up modal module on the page, multiple of those, then what would happen, it was open all of those modal windows up at the same time. Okay? We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of magic. Okay? So there's a couple things you can do with this neat little templating code called Hubble. And you can find out all the documentation right here in the top right hand corner of the page, design documentation, okay? But really what we want is we want to be able to create have a way to dynamically generate text in this little ID and have it match here in the link, okay? And these two little sections. So how do we do that? Well, one way we can do it is just have random numbers or something like that. The problem is that IDs can't start with numbers, okay? So how else do we do that? Okay, so you can use some text that's on the page. Well, let's look at that. What is an area of text that we already have on the page? We have the button text. All right, let's use the button text. Let's see if we can do that. So one of the problems that we have is that the button text has spaces in it, or potentially could have spaces, and you can have spaces in IDs. Okay, so we need to remove those spaces, and we do that by using a filter on this little module called replace. Okay, and so I would say, okay, now if I have a space, okay, so we're gonna put a little thing. If it's a space, so this represents a space, and then I don't want it to have a space. So what we're saying is we're taking a space, potential space, and we're replacing it without a space. So we're just getting rid of it altogether. Or you could also say a hash or something, or a hyphen or something of that nature. Okay, anything that's valid in an ID. Okay, now the problem is that you can have question marks, you can have periods, you can have forward slash, you can have a bunch of stuff. So you could have commas, punctuation, stuff like that in the button text. And we don't want that stuff to come out in our ID. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a little string of replace filters that enables us to just, that enables me just to come in here and copy and paste. And essentially, all I've done is, looks like we have an issue. Oh, I have an extra pipe here. All I've done is gone through and said, okay, if it's an and symbol, then use the word and. If it's a space, then put a hyphen. If it's a comma, or if it's a parentheses, use a hyphen. If it's the other side of the parentheses, use a hyphen. If it's question mark, use a take it away, just use nothing. If it's a double quote, use nothing. If it's a single quote, use nothing. If it's a period, use nothing. On and on and on. And you can stringify that. You can string those out as long as you want. But that basically just makes it to where you don't have to worry about whether or not there's going to be spaces or not. Okay. Another way to do this is to actually just use a filter called MD5. Okay. And what MD5 does is it just takes and makes a random string of numbers and letters, and it completely replaces all of the those replaces and all that stuff. Okay, so for somebody who's not really super familiar, you could just use those replaces, but you could very easily come in here and say, okay, so now we've got all my text that's being turned into an MD5, and what MD5 really would do is it would turn into something like T4R. It would look something like that, and that would be the string it would create in place of all the text in the button. Okay, and the reason why we want to do that is so that we can have the word hash modal. Okay, and we can do an underscore, and then we can place our little tag there. Okay, and we can do that the same thing here. Okay, and now the MD5 up here is going to match the MD5 string that's here, and you'll always have the same. Now I know that's different than the text in the actual blog post, but actually MD5, since we wrote this blog post, MD5 is actually a new filter that they've added in. So it makes it really easy to create just a random string that if we use the same widget modal button text module for each one, it'll always be the same string. Okay. Now we've used our content here. We have our IDs that will always be the same and they'll always be unique no matter how many Modal Popup button windows we have. Okay. We have our JavaScript links and all that done. And we have our initialization. JavaScript and CSS links done, and we have our initialization. Now, there is one more thing that we are going to need, and if you remember that white pop-up, I remember now we're going to need to add another class with some styles, and basically this just helps us position things on the page. Okay, so now we're going to update this, and we're going to come over and we're going to create we have a page created. Okay. And we're going to go and edit that page. Okay. And you can see we have a button here, but I'm going to delete it and let you see. Let's just see if it works. So we're going to hit the plus sign there to add a module. We're going to scroll all the way down to custom modules, and we have our BZ pop-up module right there. If I drop it in, we have our modal button text. All right. So I'm just going to save it. I'm not going to publish it for now. Okay. And then we'll come up here to preview, open our preview window. And if all works well, we should be able to click and see a button. Voila! And that right there is how you do it. Now, just to show you the reason why we do this, if you click here, we can edit this module, And we can, for instance, I can come up here and grab a little bit of text, paste it in there, and we can say click here for our button. And if we save it, come back up here to preview, and when I click here, we have all of our text. And you can use this for images, you can use this for videos, for iframes, you can use it for search, for search forms, you name it. But that's it. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.